Julie, and welcome back to We Can Do This. I come to you every Saturday to talk about self help topics, which hopefully may help you and your family and friends as well. And I do it for myself as well. So, welcome back. Um, I want to remind you to please subscribe and like. I have some great followers. They are really amazing. And please remember to give me the thumbs up. I really appreciate that. And if you are watching and you feel that my topics may be able to help someone that you know or love, please feel free to share my website and the address for today's broadcast with them. I do post it on Facebook every Saturday after I am done going live. So, with that being said, I do need to tell you, give my regular disclaimer that I am not a trained professional. I am not a physician. I'm not a therapist. I am just someone who has gone through a lot in my life. I have dealt with depression and anxiety for many years. And I do this live stream in the hopes that with the research I've done and the experiences that I've had, that it will help someone else get through. And some of these tips may help make things a little bit better in your life. So with that being said, once again, thank you for joining me. So we are going to talk about a topic today that really raised a lot of eyebrows. Whenever I've had a couple people mention what I was talking about today, I said, yeah, we're going to be talking about environmental factors and how it affects your depression. And I would just get these looks just like deer in the headlight looks. And everybody's like, well, what exactly is that? And I said, well, tune in and you're just going to have to see. So that's what we're doing now. So environmental factors, there are many different types and many different ways to define the word environmental. These factors that are in our environment, they can definitely affect our depression, especially if we're in a moment where we're highly vulnerable. And they can be either mentally or physically. And they are definitely things that we need to address so that it does not intensify the depression that we're feeling. So what are some of these various environmental factors, associated with depression and that can affect it? So the first one is social environment. Now, when we're talking about a social environment, obviously it's your circle, your social circle, the people around you. It can definitely affect your emotions. You want to make sure that you have very nurturing, very supportive people around you. And those are the types of people that you hang with. I, at one point, was not in that type of a social scenario, and I literally ran from that circle, and I have no regrets. It was the best decision I ever made, and I have not one moment of regret. So when you have bad or a lack of support in that circle of people around you, it can definitely be detrimental to your depression, and it can make it a lot worse. So you need to be cognizant of that and surround yourself with really good people who support you and will nurture you. And to go along with that is also family dynamics. Now, I was very blessed growing up. I had the most amazing parents, strong faith, which gave me strong faith, and my sister and now brother-in-law. I grew up with such an amazing family, but I know a lot of people were not blessed to have that in their lives. And what happens is whenever you go through your youth, and there can be a lot of trauma, there can be a lot of dysfunction there. If you don't address it, what happens is as you go along in life and this dysfunction and is around you, and what can happen is it just intensifies if you don't address it and try to work through it. And once you get to your older adolescence and you get into your adult life, it can definitely affect your ability to cope with life, and it can keep you from healthy relationships because you haven't learned that or had that in your life. So that's another environmental factor, that can affect our depression. So another thing is, which I didn't really think about, but another factor is urbanization. And and it's urbanization while being deprived from nature. Now, let me explain this. When I'm talking about an urban environment, you're talking about, like, say you're living in a big city, and it could be any big city in the world, it doesn't matter. But we're talking about the still jungle, right? You're talking about pollution, high traffic, tons of people, tons of noise, traffic, attitude, all of that. It can be a very harsh, loud, sometimes nasty environment to be in day after day after day. When you talk about nature, and I've talked about this where when I worked at home, I found that getting outside of the work building and working from my deck more in nature, listening to the wind, watching the trees, watching animals out on my deck while I was working was very calming and very soothing. So when you're in that type of an urban area and you don't have that calming nature around you, that can definitely affect your feeling, that environmental effect on your feelings of depression. The nature's very calming. Don't have that so much in the urban environment. And along with that is pollution. We mentioned pollution. And we're not talking about just air, are we? We're talking about air. We're talking about water. We're talking about trash. We're talking about hazardous chemicals. And we've seen it. We've all grown up with seeing this. You go to a beach. You go to a beach, you go canoeing or something like that, and you see trash all over the beach that's washed up on the shore, or people just didn't care and they threw their trash there. It's really disheartening, isn't it? When you go to enjoy a day with your family or your friends or whatever, and you see that, it's really, really depressing to see that. And if you're already dealing with depression, to go to that type of environment where you see the lack of caring from others, to the environment that's around us, that's really disheartening. It's really sad. So and goodness knows companies do it too. They're dumping in our waters. They're putting it in our air, and I think over the years it's gotten better, but we still see it. Let's face it, we still have it. And the next one we're going to talk about is climate change. Now, we can look at this two different ways. Now, in a one-way climate change, we can look at tornadoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, flooding, all of that. That's really depressing to see, right? We see how it affects our nature. We see how it affects, environment, how it affects our neighbors. That's all about environment. That's really, really upsetting, to see that and see how it affects the world around us. And along with that, along with climate change, let's talk about the seasons. We all know that the seasons can affect how we feel. And, typically they will say that it's the wintertime where it's usually, dark and it's cold and everybody's inside for all those months. And they say that that tends to be a very depressing season for a lot of people. Well, for me, that's not the case. I'm fine with winter. I'm fine with summer, and fall is my absolute favorite season because it is just so pretty. But you want to talk about spring, which is where we're at now. This is the time of year. This is my least favorite season, and I find that I get very depressed at this time of year. It's rainy. It's nasty. It's dreary. My allergies kick in really bad. I mean, Mother Nature and I just do not have a good relationship at this time of year. So this is a time of year where I have a tendency to get a little more depressed, and I'm aware of that. But once again, this is environment. This is what's happening around us. Now we're going to kick it up a notch and look at it from a different perspective here, another part of our environment. Let's talk about our work environment, shall we? All of us have been in work environments, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I have seen it gotten worse I've worked like 35 plus years now, and I can tell you the work environment has gotten a lot worse when it comes to depression, to anxiety. It adds to it. And especially if you're dealing with that outside of there, it can really intensify that in that environment, those feelings of depression. And let's face it, the environment today, everybody is miserable. It's really hard to find someone who's happy. If you work, you see it every day too. It can be brutal. The work environment can be very, very nasty and very rough. You can be working a lot of overtime. And we all know that takes a toll on you, both physically and mentally. It could be a situation where you're being harassed. You could be being demeaned, and that takes a hard effect on anybody to be in that type of environment day after day, and especially if you're working overtime, that can just make it even worse. And let's talk about then the school environment. I really admire children today. There is so much pressure and stress on them today. This can lead to a lot of depression for kids. It's a highly competitive environment. The pressure's on, and there's this strive and this push for them to be perfect. It's very easy to have that intensify your depression in that type of environment. So let's talk about cultural and societal attitudes about depression. Now, I can tell you when I was first diagnosed with, back then, I was very depressive. I was depressed. I was diagnosed as bipolar originally, and I'm no longer I'm no longer that. But I still deal with depression and stress and anxiety and all of that. But the cultural attitude towards that is still there's very much a stigma still out there when somebody hears that you're feeling depression. Depression is not something that you're having a bad day. Depression is something that is diagnosed. And it's something that it can be either short term. It could be something that was brought on by an event in your life. It could be something that's long term, which is in my case. Mine is partial hereditary, but mine is very strongly environmental. I'm very strongly affected by my environment around me in a lot of these different areas in my environment. So that was my drive to want to talk about this today, because I can very easily relate to this. And you think about it, put yourself in some of these scenarios. I'm sure you can see yourself in, if you're feeling depressed, what brings it on and why it does, or someone you love, a friend of yours who's going through it. It's very easy to see how someone can be going through depression. It doesn't have to be short term, doesn't have to be long term. Everybody's very different on how they're affected by their environments and those around them. The environment very much discourages going to get help. And it's really, really makes me angry, because that could not be more worse for your feelings and how you feel. Makes you want to not go get help or admit you have, I'm going to say, a problem, but it's not a problem. It's definitely something that you are diagnosed with. You treat it with talking, you treat it with medication. Everybody's different. And I don't know if you can hear it, but my cat Pager is meowing hysterically in the background. He is definitely our talker in the house. So if you hear that, that's definitely Pager. So the next thing is going to be pretty obvious. It's traumatic events. But it doesn't necessarily mean like in your personal life. I'm talking about traumatic events in the world around us. We see all these horrible things happening which goes along, with the media. The media just dogs us every day. Negativity. And, they just sensationalize it, don't they? That takes a hard toll on a person. You know, it can very much add to not only your depression by any type of a traumatic event, but it can also lead to something called PTSD, which I have been dealing with for a little less than 10 years now. And I have gotten much better. It was from an event in my life, and I've gotten much better with it. And I do still have it, but it happens a lot less now because I've come very far. I've dealt with it, and I'm much better. But traumatic events that happen to you, that can also come out of depression, making it worse, and this as well. So those are, and the final thing, sorry, one more thing, substance abuse. I've known many people in my life who have become alcoholics, they become drug addicts. They don't want to get help. And one of the things that can lead to that is a lot of these people use it to self-medicate themselves to try to make themselves feel better. And I think we've all known people like this where they take it to the extreme, they go to therapy or they go to get help or rehab or whatever it is, and they fail again and again. And it's because when they get out back into the environment that's out there and back to their reality, they go back to that same pattern again because they felt that that's what helped them. And can you see where it just becomes this vicious cycle? So all of these things that we've just talked about here, think back to some of these things we've mentioned here. Is this you right now? Do you remember a time where it has been you? Do you feel that you're at a point where you're starting to see this? You need to address it. Notice it. Don't be afraid to. Recognize it and go forward with it. So, what are some things we can do that we can take preventative measures and we can get some interventions that will help us deal with all of these different environmental factors that affect us and the depression we may be feeling? So the first thing is mental health education. Now, this would not only, obviously come from your physician, but I can tell you there's all kinds of information that's out there these days because it is so much more known now. It's not as stigmatized, even though it still is somewhat. But there are all kinds of articles. There's books, there's articles, there's podcasts. There's people like me who do live streams. There's all kinds of people out there, use this as a tool. We all have to be our own advocates today. And I know when you're depressed, it's very hard to be your own advocate. I know. I've been there. I've done that. I've educated myself over a long period of time, and I've learned, and I'm much better with it. And that's why I'm coming to you now, is I want to bring some of this to you in the hopes it'll help you. Educate yourself. Education is very important. Don't be ashamed of it. Read, talk, ask questions. Absolutely. Take it there. Social support networks. We said we need to have nurturing, supportive people around us. Surround yourself with them. Surround yourself. Don't let people in your life bring you down or, joke at you, laughing about, oh, yeah, right, sure, get over it. No, that is not what this is. You deserve to be supported. Absolutely. You deserve it. You've earned it to be supportive. Don't ever forget that, ever. Everybody needs it. Everybody deserves it, and you've earned it. Do it. Workplace. I know it's tough, but I will say this. Over the years, I've seen a change in the workplace where They do have a lot of programs, a lot of articles, a lot of things you can reach out to, a lot of avenues where you can help yourself and get professional help. Many companies have EAP programs, employee assistance programs. I've used them. They're there for you. They're a benefit. They do not cost you anything. Every company is different depending on the program. You could have usually anywhere from 3 to 10 sessions free. You don't have to pay anything for it. All you need to do is reach out for it, get it, arrange it, and take advantage of it. And all along with these EAP programs, they also have articles, they have podcasts, they have all kinds of things you can listen to and reach out to so that you can focus on balance and stress management in your life. Like I said, be your own advocate. We all have to medically, physically, mental, in our lives, all aspects of our lives. We know this. Take advantage of it. Any trauma that's in your life, you got to address it. You got to address it. If you don't, I tell you, it is going to fester badly. It will fester. It will become the powder keg that I became. You have to deal with it. Don't let it inside. Get it out. As we always say, go to professional help. I'm telling you, don't feel guilty. Don't feel like you're ashamed. Don't, because I'm telling you, people love you and you need nurtured and supportive. But the problem is sometimes you need that outside person, doesn't know your circumstance, doesn't know the people around you. You give them facts. They use the facts, not emotion. They use the facts to give you feedback that you need to help you look at things from a different perspective. It is the best thing you can do for yourself. Get a fresh perspective, because when you're depressed, you don't see things clearly. I don't. Sometimes I don't. And I know that that's when I go to that professional. I go to my therapy. I go to my doctor, talk it through, get that new opinion, get a different opinion, a different perspective will do you a world of good. Absolutely. And for goodness sakes, get away from the media. We are bombarded with it. Computers, phones, television, radio, you name it. We have it all around us, bombarding us every day. Limit it. If you have to go, I had to go cold turkey. I cannot watch the news to this day. I just want to see what the weather is, and I can get that elsewhere. I had to go cold turkey. If you can't go cold turkey, you don't feel like you want to do that, limit it. Limit it. Don't let that sensationalization grab your depression and take you down a rabbit hole that you're going to struggle to get out of. Do yourself a favor. Control it, decrease it, less exposure. You will notice a difference. I know I did. So, to conclude all this, what do we say? Environmental factors that affect our depression. Address issues when they come up. Go to professional help. Get yourself surrounded by some really good, nurturing people who support you, people who care about you, and get away, run away from the ones who are not. Put yourself in positive environments. And please remember, I know I've talked to people before where they fear that their depression is going to last for a lifetime. That is not true. That is not in every case. There are people who have had certain events in their lives where they just temporarily needed some help. They needed some extra perspective, different perspective, and even maybe medication or just discussion. Please, 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 don't be afraid. Don't automatically think it's a lifetime. For me, it has been. I've been like this since my 20s. But for you, that is not the case. That does not mean you have to be on medication. Everybody is different. Remember that. Don't be afraid of it. Reach out. Get the help, because your environment in all these different ways can affect you, whether you notice it or not. So with all this being said, I hope this now shows you what exactly environmental depression is, what can make it worse, and some of the tips we can do to make it better for ourselves or to help those around us. I hope I've helped today. So with that being said, reminding you again, please subscribe to my channel, give me the thumbs up, and as my teaser for next week, I have decided that my topic is going to be living on fast forward. And this is something we can all relate to. So that's what I'm going to talk about next week. And as a double teaser, 2 weeks from now on the 17th, I will not be broadcasting. I'm going to take the night off because I am going to have a night out on the town. And I'm very anxious and cannot wait to have that night. I'm going to go out with some friends and have a great fun time. So, as we have now come to the end of my broadcast, we're going to do it. And here we go. We could do this. We got this. I can and I will. You can too. I know you can. I believe in you. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe in you. Believe in yourself. You're worth it. You're worth it. And that's what we're here to do this together. Believe in yourself. Never forget that. So with that being said, next week, I will be here again, Saturday afternoon, 4 o'clock. And please, if you can't join me live, please, I will put this on Facebook. You are welcome to watch the replay. I appreciate all the support, all my friends, all my subscribers. You are amazing. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great and safe week next week. So until next time, my friends, stay safe. See you then.